Muslims in France and worldwide. A gruesome murder took place on the morning of Friday, April 25th, 2025 AD. A crime took place in the city of Alice, a small city in southeastern France. The crime is horrific from several dimensions. First, the dead young man is a young Muslim named Abu Bakr Si, 24 years old, of African origins from Mali. This young man volunteers, may God have mercy on him, and raises his grades by cleaning the mosque every Friday before prayer. The mosque was being cleaned at this time, and a Frenchman came and spoke to him in normal words, as the cameras depicted. There was no kind of violence in the dialogue. Then after that, they snatched the young Muslim man yet. But the conversation with him ended and he began to pray 2 rakahs before the praying audience came to the mosque. The second entered him while he was praying and killed him while I was praying. It's a #1 city in the dead man was a young man in very normal circumstances in the mosque, and he was young, meaning he was subjected to this killing in this way. Now the second horrific point is that this killer is a 21-year-old French young man named Olivier, and this young man most likely does not know the dead man at all, meaning he was killed. One, he has never seen it before. The footage shows they were unfamiliar with each other. Before that. The third horrific thing is that he was not just killed, an ordinary killing or stabbing, or the possibility that he was angry with him about something. This is stabbing him 50 times. I mean, the amount of malice, hatred in his heart was not satisfied with 1 or 2 blows. It is certainly the young man Abu Bakr, may God have mercy on him. I mean, he died from the first 2 stabs, 35, but why? 50 stab wounds? This is something that means ugly. The last thing to say is that after they were killed, the killer uttered obscene words. God Almighty, Islam and Muslims. This is part of hate crimes of religion, Islamophobia, the pathological fear of Islam that is widespread in Europe in general and in France in particular. Why are the French afraid of Islam? Or why don't you like Islam? Why do they have Islamophobia? He appeared in France, and in many incidents, I mean, it's still been 2 or 3 weeks. Of course, we are also talking about Algerian women who have been exposed to us. He also agrees to be attacked in the street because they are veiled. And he also agrees to be concerned because they are with me, meaning they insult them that they are Arabs or Muslims. I mean, they do not know them personally, but why is the attack for the sake of the body or for the sake of whether they are Muslims? First, the growing number of Muslims in France. Muslims in France, our brothers and sisters, 6, 310, 1,000 Muslims, mostly male and female. Of course, there are no official statistics because the state is secular. It does not happen. What does recommending religions mean? But the estimate is that they are approximately 6.3 cent being in 1,000, which makes 8.8% of the people of France, a percentage, of course, very, very huge. So you know how big this percentage is. The total number of Muslims in the Muslim countries in Europe is less than the number of Muslims in France. Meaning that the Muslims in Bosnia, Albania and Kosovo are the 3 least in the group of 3, about 6,000. In France, 6, 3, 10,000 are Muslims. Of course, the age percentage is large and the birth rates among French people who are not Muslims are very, very few. They give birth at a birth rate of 1.8%. What are the birth rates among Muslims, among those living in France? You reach 8% and 0.1%. So what does this mean? Does this mean that with the future, the percentage will increase in favor of the Muslims? Touching the French will not leave them behind, and the Muslims will leave behind a lot, so the percentage will come in favor. Muslims say that cultural influence is linked to the fertility rate. A civilization that wants to preserve its being and identity must have a fertility rate of 2.1% or higher. I have sacrificed that it can live like this for 25 years, and the higher the fertility rate, the longer it will live. Civilization with the same identity. The civilization of the French, their fertility is 1.8 less than that of 0.1. What does this mean? What in 25 years will be the French identity? I said a little about this, and with another 25 years I will say more. I feel that in the end, the French people are dissolving into the Muslim identity, whose workers are increasing in the country. Of course, this is something that is a factor of terror for French thinkers. I create terror for people who study the future and the social atmosphere and very many things. And also, let us not forget the topic immigration. We are talking about people who live in France. The French are Muslims and the successors of France increase the percentage, but there are also people who come from abroad. Immigration to Europe has increased very significantly in recent years. I mean, it is enough for me to tell you from the year 2021 to 2022, but in this year, immigration increased by 64%. And most of the immigrants are Muslims who immigrate to France, whether from Arab Islamic countries or from African Islamic countries. And the number of mosques in France is increasing over time. We were giving a lecture on the channel here about a year and a half ago. We had statistics for the year 2016. The number of mosques was 2,260 mosques, 2016 and 2024. The last statistics on mosques were 2,500, meaning that within 9 years they increased by 240 mosques. Thus, if we do this episode, after 2 or 3 months, you will find a new mosque opened, and mosques, God willing, that is, in all cities. In different sizes, of course. What does this matter? Also, the French are worried about me, especially since the churches are decreasing. This is also what we did in an old episode. There were 100,000 Catholic churches and 45,000 now in France. The number of Catholic churches is decreasing, and they are selling the churches to me for other things, and ours for the benefit of mosques. Which means that a lot of churches are sold and turned into residences. Of course, this is something that people notice. The French and a factor, something from Al-Qalaiba. The first thing is that the percentage of Muslims is increasing in France. This is a factor of anxiety in France. The number of natural racism among the French. The French have a white ethnicity. This is clear racism, but the French ethnicity also remains on Europe. I mean, they see themselves on Europe, and they see themselves because they are originally white, and European ethnicity, they have natural racism. B, they still look at someone like Abu Bakr Si from Mali, nor any of the ideas that he is a slave of the slaves who were enslaved to them. I mean, centuries before that. And the third point, the prominent hate language in the speeches of some officials in France, or I don't want to say all officials, but I mean, very many officials are not trying to hide this language, but it appears until it appeared on the lips of the Minister of the Interior, Bruno A. Rotau, and others. He pointed out that the language of hate is present on him. It is not us as Muslims who say this. This is in some activists who were sympathetic to Muslims in the country. The last tragedy, the death of the young man. What do you mean? They said these words from Christian activists, French people who said these words to the Minister of the L. The Interior Ministry, the fourth need is laxity in hate crimes against Muslims, meaning the Prime Minister. The crime occurred on Friday morning. The Prime Minister did not comment on the issue until Saturday night, and Macron commented on the issue, and the Minister of the Interior did not visit the place until 2 days later. He visited the place on the day of the holiday, while the Minister of the Interior himself, when what happened about a week ago, killed one of the teenage students of one of his colleagues. On the same day he was at the school and was present at the place where the murder took place and discussed the issue. Because the issue is important to him, but this issue, by dealing with it lazily, encourages people if it infringes on Muslims. The last thing I say in this regard is the tension that exists now between France and between a number of Islamic countries, like the tension that exists with Algeria. We are all following events. Tension exists with some African countries. And Macron's statements on some matters also answer some provocation. So that is all of this. A factor of some kind of concern in French society in general, and of course don't forget that they have inheritances, an origin in their brain that is very old from history. Rather, France is next to Andalusia and next to Sicily. And this country was where Muslims lived for long periods of clear Islamic supremacy. And among them, there were major problems with France over the decades. Then the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire also has its own history. And they also remained in their conquest to us, the wars of Crusade and French colonialism. For a very large number of Arab and Islamic countries, the nature of all of this is taught in the curricula. And we see it in the media, and we see it as the father of education among people and thinkers. This is something cultivated. See, in fact, in frenzy, in general, our brothers and sisters, this is a tax on living in a non-Muslim country. Meaning, in true interests that are achieved, whether worldly interests or religious and preaching interests, I know that there are interests that are achieved, but at the same time, it remains a tax as a result of if you lived in a non-Muslim country. In a non-Muslim society, the tax you pay a lot. The most important thing you pay in this tax are two very, very big needs. The first need is an adventure in the children's religion. The children of sexual openness that exist in this country, the issue of the alcohol that exists in the country, the irregularity in prayer, the lack of prayer, the ease of access to the appropriate science lessons that teach children what is religion, and the most dangerous of all of this, the problems and ideological suspicions that can be planted in the minds of children in this environment, in this atmosphere, in this environment, and in this secular country. The warrior me religion, very clearly and frankly, this remains the first thing which the Egyptians pay for, which is the issue of children. And the second thing, the issue of hatred that we are talking about, which is the issue of crimes, which you will see increasing every little while here or here. And it is very, very difficult for you to leave the mind of society if you are part of it. No, it is not. I'm not part of it. I always feel that this is a foreign body planted within French society, Muslims coming from Mali, nor coming from Algeria, Morocco and Tunisia, or coming from anywhere in the world. To live in France with its different identity, culture and history, completely different from a country, and it may be Mahdi, it is difficult for him to accept it, which is why such crimes occur from creatures. May God inspire Muslims to be rational in France, in Europe and in the entire world, and guide them to the mosque between self-control, which means protecting their existence and maintaining sleep, and preserving their rights, demanding them and defending them. And may our Lord Almighty have mercy on the Muslim victim whose last act, thanks to God, was cleaning the mosque and praying. May God reward you with goodness and peace, mercy and blessings of God be upon you.